As soon as he knew about the inheritance, he laughed. "Pack your bags, I'm a millionaire now." He filed for divorce, and I signed. But the moment the lawyer read the will, my ex-husband screamed in horror. Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, I'd love to know which city you're joining us from. Please feel free to share in the comments. Now, let me take you into this story. As soon as my husband found out he was coming into a massive inheritance, he didn't hug me. He didn't scream with joy and talk about how our struggle was finally over. He didn't mention paying off the debts we had accumulated over 25 years of marriage. Instead, he walked into the bedroom where I was folding laundry, a predatory grin stretching across his face, and announced, "Pack your bags, Mallory. I'm a rich man now. And rich men don't stay married to women like you." He literally kicked me out the door and filed for an expedited divorce the very next morning. I stood there on the porch, the biting winter wind cutting through my thin sweater, staring at the closed door of the house I had scrubbed, painted, and paid for with my own sweat for 2.5 decades. I signed the papers calmly, my hand trembling not from fear, but from a cold, hard realization that the man I loved was dead. But the moment the lawyer read the will a week later, Trent dropped to his knees in front of me, screaming in horror. Welcome to the Life Stories channel. Before we dive into this roller coaster of betrayal and karma, I want to thank you for being here. Drop a comment and let me know which city or country you're tuning in from today. I'd love to know where my listeners are. We hope you enjoy listening to this captivating story. Now, let me take you back to that freezing Tuesday morning when my life fell apart, so you can understand exactly how sweet the justice truly was. It was 5:30 a.m. The alarm clock buzzed, a harsh, grating sound in the silence of our drafty two-bedroom house on the outskirts of Detroit. Outside, it was pitch black. The streetlights flickered against the snow-covered lawn, casting long, eerie shadows that looked like grasping fingers. I stretched, trying to be quiet so I wouldn't wake Trent, and slipped out from under the quilt. The cold floor immediately stunned my bare feet. We kept the thermostat low to save money on the heating bill, money that Trent usually spent on business ventures that never went anywhere. In the bathroom, I looked at my reflection in the chipped mirror. I was 52 years old, but the woman staring back at me looked 60. There were deep, dark circles under my eyes that no amount of concealer could hide anymore. My hands were rough, the skin dry and cracked from years of washing dishes, scrubbing floors, and changing bedpans at the nursing home where I worked. I had the first fine lines of age etched around my mouth, and my hair desperately needed a touch-up. But I had neither the time nor the salary to waste on a salon. I splashed ice-cold water on my face and started getting ready for my double shift. First, the morning shift at the grocery store, then the night shift at the care facility. "You up early again?" Trent's grumpy voice drifted from the bedroom. "I have to be at the store by 7, Trent," I answered softly, pulling on my old, gray cardigan. "Go back to sleep." "How am I supposed to rest with you making all that racket at the crack of dawn?" he grumbled, turning his face to the wall and pulling the blanket up over his head. I bit my lip, suppressing the urge to scream. Back in the day, 25 years ago when we first got married, Trent used to wake up with me. He would make coffee, kiss my forehead, and tell me I was the most beautiful woman in the world. He promised we would build an empire together. But now? Now, my very existence seemed to annoy him. I went to the kitchen and made instant coffee, eating a slice of dry toast while standing by the window. There was never time for a proper breakfast. By 6:45 a.m., I was walking out the door to catch the bus. My car had broken down 3 months ago, and Trent said we didn't have the funds to fix it, even though I saw a new set of golf clubs in the trunk of his car just last week. My job at the grocery store was tedious. Scanning items, bagging groceries, dealing with customers who were angry about inflation. The pay wasn't much, but it was steady. And right now, it was the only real money coming into the household. Trent hadn't held a steady job in 5 years. He called himself an entrepreneur. First, it was selling vitamins, then cryptocurrency, then flipping antique furniture. The only thing he ever successfully flipped was our savings account into a deficit. Every time I timidly asked if maybe he should get a regular 9 to 5, just temporarily, he would explode. You just don't understand how business works, Mallory. You have to invest. You have to have patience. Look at Elon Musk. Look at the big moguls. They all took risks. So I endured. I took on extra shifts. I wore clothes from the thrift store. I skipped lunch to save $5. And what was waiting for me at home that evening would shatter the fragile reality I had been holding on to for decades. I got home around 8 p.m., exhausted. My feet were throbbing. Trent was sitting on the sofa, a beer in his hand, watching sports. The sink was full of dirty dishes from the lunch he had made for himself. Crumbs were scattered all over the floor. "Trent," I said, my voice heavy with fatigue. "Could you not at least put your plate in the dishwasher?" He didn't even look away from the TV. "I'm busy, Mallory. My mind is on big things. I'm waiting for a call. A very important call." "About a job?" I asked, hope rising slightly in my chest. He snorted. "Better. About destiny. You'll see." Little did I know, he was right. Destiny was calling, but it wasn't the kind of blessing he thought it was. And it certainly wasn't going to include me. As I stood there, looking at the man I had sacrificed everything for, I felt a strange chill, a premonition that the ground beneath my feet was about to crumble. To understand why I didn't just turn around and leave Trent years ago, you have to understand where I came from. I grew up in the foster care system. I bounced from house to house, never belonging, never feeling safe. My possessions fit into a single black garbage bag. I learned early on that love was conditional, and a roof over your head could be snatched away if you made too much noise or ate too much food. When I met Trent 25 years ago, I was a 27-year-old nursing student with big dreams of becoming a doctor. He was charming, handsome, and most importantly, he came from a family. He had parents, a house, a history. When he looked at me and said, "I want to take care of you," I believed him. I was starving for belonging, and he offered me a feast. We got married within 6 months. I dropped out of medical school to support him while he finished his business degree. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself that once he was established, I would go back. I would finish my degree. But life has a way of burying dreams under piles of unpaid bills. Trent's business degree didn't lead to a high-paying executive job. It led to a series of almosts. He almost got the promotion. He almost closed the deal. He almost made it big. And every time he failed, I was there to pick up the pieces. 10 years into our marriage, the first major crack appeared. Trent had developed a gambling habit. I didn't know until the eviction notice was taped to our apartment door. He had gambled away our rent money, our car payments, and the small savings I had scraped together for my tuition. I remember sitting on the floor of our empty living room, crying. Trent was on his knees, begging, promising he would never do it again. "It was a mistake, Mallory. I was trying to double our money so you wouldn't have to work so hard. I did it for us. And because I was terrified of being alone, terrified of going back to being that girl with the garbage bag, I forgave him. I took a second job. I worked 80 hours a week for 2 years to pay off his debts. I saved his credit score. I saved his reputation. I sacrificed my youth and my health to keep him afloat. But sacrifice, I learned, is often mistaken for weakness by those who take advantage of it. Trent didn't see my hard work as love, he saw it as a safety net that allowed him to keep jumping off cliffs. By the time we reached our late 40s, the dynamic was set in stone. I was the mule, the worker bee, the steady paycheck. Trent was the dreamer, the visionary, the man who was too good for manual labor. I remember one specific night, about 5 years ago. I had come home from a double shift at the nursing home. My back was screaming in pain. I had spent 12 hours lifting heavy patients, cleaning up bodily fluids, and holding the hands of the dying. I smelled like antiseptic and exhaustion. Trent was at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers. "Mallory, great news," he said, not asking how my day was. "I found a supplier for those vintage watches. I just need $5,000 to buy the initial inventory." "$5,000?" I choked out, dropping my bag. "Trent, that's our emergency fund. That's the money for the roof repair. The leak in the bedroom is getting worse." "Forget the roof," he shouted, slamming his hand on the table. "You have no vision. This is going to turn into $50,000 in 3 months. Do you want to be a nurse's aide forever? Do you want to wipe old people's bottoms for the rest of your life?" His words cut deep. He knew exactly where to hurt me. He knew I was ashamed that I never became a doctor. He knew I felt trapped. "I do it to put food on this table," I whispered. "And that's why we're mediocre," he sneered. "Because you think small. I need a partner who believes in me, not a nag who worries about pennies." I gave him the money. I always gave him the money. And 3 months later, the vintage watches turned out to be fakes. The supplier vanished. The money was gone. And when the roof finally caved in during a thunderstorm, ruining our mattress, Trent blamed me. He said if I had been more supportive, the universe would have aligned for his success. That was the burden I carried. A husband who was not a partner, but a child I had to support. A man who viewed my paycheck as his allowance and my exhaustion as an inconvenience. I stayed because I had invested 25 years. I stayed because of the sunk cost fallacy, the idea that you can't leave because you've already put so much in. But mostly, I stayed because I didn't think anyone else would want a tired, worn-out woman like me. And Trent made sure to reinforce that belief every single day. He chipped away at my confidence until I was nothing but a shell, grateful for the scraps of attention he threw my way. But the worst pain wasn't the money. It was the empty room in our house that was supposed to be a nursery. The silence in our house was heavy, but the silence in the spare bedroom was deafening. It was the room we had painted yellow 20 years ago. The room meant for a crib, for toys, for laughter. Now, it was just a storage room for Trent's failed business inventory, boxes of unsold vitamins, broken computer parts, and dusty exercise equipment he never used. We never had children. For a woman who spent her entire childhood dreaming of creating a loving family, this was a grief that never truly healed. It was a dull ache that throbbed on Mother's Day, on Christmas, and every time I saw a family walking in the park. For years, Trent told me it was my fault. "You're too stressed, Mallory," he would say when another month passed without a pregnancy. "Your body is too tense. If you just relaxed, if you didn't work so much, maybe it would happen." He made me feel like my womb was as broken as our bank account. I went to doctors alone. I took tests alone. The doctors told me there was nothing obviously wrong with me, but we needed to test Trent to be sure. Every time I brought it up, he would fly into a rage. "Me? You think there's something wrong with me? I'm a man, Mallory. I'm in my prime. Look at my father, look at my grandfather Silas. Vitality runs in my blood. It's you. It's your diet. It's your negative energy." He refused to get tested. He refused to spend a dime on fertility treatments. "We can't afford IVF, Mallory," he said, scrolling through his phone on the couch. "Do you know how much that costs? We need that capital for my investments. Besides, kids are expensive. Maybe it's a sign. Maybe we're meant to be a power couple, focused on building an empire. An empire of nothing." The gaslighting was subtle at first, then overt. He rewrote history. He convinced me that I was the one who didn't want kids. "Remember, Mal? You said you wanted to focus on your career," he would say in front of friends. I would sit there, stunned, unable to argue without causing a scene. The breaking point of my silent suffering came last year. I had been feeling particularly low. My period had started again, marking the end of another cycle of hope. I was cleaning out the trunk of Trent's car. He had spilled soda and told me to clean it up when I found a receipt crumpled under the spare tire. It was from a high-end sporting goods store. A set of custom titanium golf clubs. The price tag was nearly $2,000. $2,000. Just 2 weeks prior, I had begged him to let me see a specialist, a new fertility doctor who offered a consultation for $500. Trent had looked me in the eye, sighed dramatically, and said, "Mal, we just don't have the liquidity right now. We have to tighten our belts. Maybe next year." Next year. I was 51 then. There was no next year for having a baby. I stood in the driveway, holding that receipt, my hands shaking. He had denied me the chance to be a mother because it was too expensive, yet he spent 4 times that amount on a hobby he barely played. When I confronted him, he didn't apologize. He didn't look ashamed. He turned it around on me. "You're snooping now?" he yelled, his face turning red. "I work hard on my networking. Golf is where business deals happen, Mallory. I bought those clubs to secure our future. You're so selfish. Always thinking about a baby that doesn't exist instead of supporting the husband who is trying to make us rich." "Selfish?" I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "I work 2 jobs, Trent. I wear shoes with holes in the soles. I wanted a child. I wanted a family." "You want a child?" he sneered, stepping closer, looming over me. "Look in the mirror. You're old, Mallory. You're dried up. Even if we had the money, nature has spoken. Stop trying to fill the void in your soul with a brat and start appreciating what you have. You have me." That night, something inside me died. The hope of being a mother was finally extinguished, not by biology, but by the cruelty of the man I married. I stopped asking. I stopped hoping. I just worked. I poured all that unspent maternal love into my patients at the nursing home. I treated them like the parents I never had, and the children I never bore. And there was one patient in particular who received the best of my care. Not because he was a patient at the facility, but because he was family. Trent's grandfather, Silas Vance. The only man in the Vance family who actually had a heart, and ironically, the man whose death would trigger the explosion of my life. Silas Vance was a legend in our town, but not for the reasons Trent liked to brag about. Trent told everyone his grandfather was a tycoon, a real estate mogul. The truth was, Silas was a hard-working man who had bought land when it was cheap and held onto it. He lived modestly in a small house by the lake, about an hour away from us. He drove an old truck and wore flannel shirts. You would never know he was sitting on a fortune. 3 years ago, Silas's health began to decline. He had a stroke that left him partially paralyzed on his left side. He needed help. He needed care. Trent, his only grandson and direct heir, visited exactly once in the first month. He walked in, looked at the medical equipment, looked at his grandfather's drooling mouth, and wrinkled his nose in disgust. "We need to put him in a home," Trent said to me in the hallway, loud enough for Silas to hear. "I can't deal with this. The smell, it's depressing. And I have meetings. I can't be driving out here every day." "He doesn't want to go to a home, Trent," I whispered furiously. "He wants to stay in his house. He has the money for home care." "No," Trent waved his hand dismissively. "That eats into the estate. If we hire private nurses, they'll bleed him dry. You do it." "Me? You're a nurse, aren't you? Or a nurse's aide, whatever. It's your job. You take care of him. You drive out here after your shift and on weekends. Keep an eye on the assets. Make sure nobody steals the silver. So, that became my life. For 3 years, I worked my double shifts, and then I drove an hour to Silas's lake house. I bathed him. I changed his adult diapers. I spoon-fed him soup when his hands were shaking too much to hold the spoon. I managed his medications. And Trent? He stayed home. He played video games. He networked at the golf course with his $2,000 clubs. He called me occasionally, not to ask how his grandfather was doing, but to ask, is he, Is he still holding on? He was waiting for Silas to die. He was salivating over it. But in those quiet hours at the lake house, I found a strange peace. Silas couldn't speak well at first, but his mind was sharp as a tack. His eyes, pale blue and watery, saw everything. I remember one night vividly. It was a terrible winter storm. The roads were icy, and the wind was howling like a banshee. Silas had developed a high fever suddenly. He was shaking, his skin burning up. I knew I had to get him to the hospital, but he was a heavy man, dead weight in his sickness. I called Trent. Trent, it's an emergency, I panicked into the phone. Silas is burning up. The ambulance says they're delayed because of the ice. I need you to come help me get him into my car. Please. Background noise. Music. Laughter. Clinking glasses. Trent? Mallory, relax, Trent's voice was slurred. He was drunk. He's old. Old people get fevers. Just give him some Tylenol. I'm at a very important mixer with potential investors. I can't leave. He might have pneumonia, Trent. He could die. Well, everyone dies eventually, he laughed, a cruel, ugly sound. Call me if he actually kicks the bucket. Otherwise, handle it. That's what you're good at. Cleaning up messes. He hung up. I dropped the phone. I looked at Silas. He was looking at me, tears leaking from the corners of his eyes. He had heard everything. That night, I found a strength I didn't know I had. Adrenaline is a powerful thing. I managed to lift Silas into his wheelchair, and then, slipping and sliding on the icy ramp, I wrestled him into the passenger seat of my beat-up sedan. I drove through the blizzard, praying, crying, holding his hot hand with my freezing one. We spent 3 days in the hospital. I slept in the chair next to his bed. Trent never showed up. Not once. When Silas finally stabilized and woke up, his speech was clearer than it had been in months. He looked at me with an intensity that frightened me. Mallory, he rasped, his voice rough. I'm here, Grandpa Silas, I said, stroking his hand. Do you need water? Why? He asked. Why do you do it? That boy, my blood, he is rot. He is poison. Why do you stay? I looked down at my wedding ring, which was loose on my finger because I had lost weight from stress. Because he's my husband. And because I don't have anyone else. Silas squeezed my hand. His grip was surprisingly strong. You have yourself, girl. You have a heart of gold. Don't let him turn it into lead. He closed his eyes, his breathing heavy. I see you, Mallory. I see everything. And I will fix it. I thought he was delirious from the fever. I thought he meant he would talk to Trent, tell him to be better. I didn't know that Silas Vance began plotting that very night. He summoned his lawyer the next morning, demanding a private meeting. He explicitly forbade me from telling Trent about the lawyer. Family business, Silas had winked at me. Surprise for the boy. I thought the surprise was money. I thought Silas was going to give Trent his inheritance early. I had no idea that the old man was crafting a trap. A trap designed to test the integrity of a man who had none. After Silas recovered from the pneumonia, he lived for another 6 months. But in those 6 months, the dynamic in my own home shifted from neglect to active hostility. It was as if Trent sensed that his payday was approaching, and his tolerance for me was evaporating along with his patience. He started attacking my appearance with a viciousness that took my breath away. It started with small comments. "You're wearing that, or did you gain weight? You look heavy." But it quickly escalated into public humiliation. Thanksgiving was the final straw that should have made me leave, but God help me, I stayed. We were hosting a small dinner for Trent's side of the family, his Aunt Verna, Silas's sister, and a few cousins. I had spent 2 days cooking. I made the turkey, the stuffing, the pies. I polished the silverware. I wanted everything to be perfect. I was wearing a dress I had bought at a consignment shop. It was a simple navy blue dress, modest and elegant, I thought. I had curled my hair and put on lipstick. I felt, for the first time in a while, almost pretty. When I walked into the living room with the tray of appetizers, the chatter stopped. Trent looked me up and down, his face twisting into a grimace of distaste. "Jesus, Mallory," he said loudly, silencing the room. "You look like a librarian from the 1950s. Can't you try a little harder? Look at Cousin Sherry." He pointed to his 25-year-old cousin who was wearing a tight, fashionable dress. "She takes care of herself. You look like my mother. And she's been dead for 10 years. A few of the male cousins chuckled nervously. Aunt Verna gasped. "Trent! That is a hateful thing to say. Mallory looks lovely." "I'm just being honest, Auntie," Trent shrugged, grabbing a deviled egg and stuffing it into his mouth. "Honesty is the key to a marriage, right? I'm just saying, when the big money comes in from Grandpa, things are going to change. I'm going to need a wife who matches the lifestyle. Someone who fits on a yacht, not someone who looks like she belongs in a rocking chair." I stood there, the tray shaking in my hands. The heat rushed to my face, burning my cheeks. I wanted to drop the tray. I wanted to scream. But decades of conditioning kicked in. I forced a smile, a horrible, brittle smile. "Dinner is served," I whispered. I spent the rest of the meal in the kitchen, pretending to clean up, while they ate the food I cooked. Trent didn't even come to check on me. I heard him in the dining room, boasting. "Yeah, Grandpa's not doing great. Any day now, honestly. And once that estate settles, man, I'm thinking Europe. I'm thinking a Porsche. I'm finally going to live the life I deserve." "And Mallory?" Aunt Verna asked sharply. "Is she going to Europe with you?" There was a pause. A long, uncomfortable silence. "Mallory hates travel," Trent lied smoothly. "She's a homebody. She likes her little job at the nursing home. I wouldn't want to drag her out of her comfort zone." He was erasing me from his future before the ink on the check was even dry. Later that night, while I was scrubbing the roasting pan, Trent came in. He smelled of wine and arrogance. He leaned against the counter, watching me. "You embarrassed me tonight," he said. I stopped scrubbing. "I embarrassed you? You insulted me in front of your family. You're too sensitive. That's your problem. You have no sense of humor. And look at you." He gestured vaguely at my body. "You let yourself go, Mallory. It's disrespectful to me. A man of my potential needs a trophy, not a participation award. I work 2 jobs to feed you, Trent." I snapped, turning around. "I don't have time for the gym. I don't have money for Botox." "Excuses," he sneered. "Winners find a way. Losers make excuses. And you, my dear wife, are a born loser. You have a loser mentality. That's why you're a nurse's aide and not a doctor. That's why you have no kids. That's why you're nothing. He walked out, leaving me with the dirty dishes and a heart that was rapidly turning to stone. I didn't cry that night. I think I had run out of tears. Instead, I felt a cold numbness spreading through my chest. I looked at the knife block on the counter. I wasn't thinking of hurting him, but I was thinking of cutting the cord. But I didn't. Not yet. I told myself I had to see it through with Silas. I couldn't leave the old man now. He needed me. And deep down, a tiny, foolish part of me hoped that maybe, just maybe, when the inheritance came, Trent would be happy. Maybe money would cure his cruelty. Maybe if he wasn't stressed about being a failure, he would go back to being the man I married. I was so wrong. Money doesn't change people, folks. Money unmasks them. It acts as an amplifier. If you are a good person, money makes you better. If you are a bad person, money makes you a monster. And Trent was about to become Godzilla. The call came 2 weeks later, on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at the grocery store, scanning a can of peas, when my phone buzzed. It was the hospice nurse I had hired for the days I couldn't be there, paid for out of my own secret stash of tips. "Mallory," she said softly. "It's time." "He's gone." I froze. The can of peas dropped from my hand and rolled across the floor. He's gone? He passed peacefully in his sleep about 10 minutes ago. I called you first. Did you call Trent? I tried. It went to voicemail. I left work immediately. My manager yelled after me, but I didn't care. I drove to the lake house, blinding tears making it hard to see the road. Silas was the father figure I never had. He was the only person who had looked at me with respect in 20 years. When I got there, I sat by his bed for an hour, holding his cooling hand. He looked peaceful. I thanked him for his kindness. I promised him I would be okay. Then, I called Trent again. He finally picked up on the third ring. "What?" He sounded annoyed. "I'm in the middle of a raid on my game." "Silas is dead, Trent." Silence. For a moment, I thought maybe he was processing grief. Maybe he was shocked. "Are you sure?" he asked. Not "oh God." Not "no." Just "are you sure?" "I'm sitting with him." "Yes." Finally, Trent exhaled, a long, loud sigh of relief. "Okay. Okay, this is it. Don't touch anything. Don't let the coroner take him yet. I need to get there and find the papers. Where is the deed to the house? Do you know where he kept the safe key? Trent. Your grandfather just died. Show some respect. Respect doesn't pay the bills, Mallory. Put a sheet over him or something. I'm on my way. And call the lawyer. Tell him the clock has started." He hung up. I sat there, stunned by the absolute coldness of his soul. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't ask if Silas had suffered. He only cared about the papers. The next few days were a blur of grotesque contrasts. I handled the funeral arrangements. I chose the casket, the flowers, the hymns. I wrote the obituary. I sat with Aunt Verna and cried over old photo albums. Trent? Trent was manic. He was high on greed. He strutted around the funeral home like he owned the place. "We don't need the mahogany casket," he argued with the funeral director right in front of Silas's body. "The pine is fine. He's going in the ground, who cares? It burns anyway. Save the $2,000. He wanted the mahogany, Trent," I said firmly. "And he left money specifically for his funeral expenses. That's my money now." Trent hissed at me. "Every dollar you spend on a dead man is $1 out of my pocket. It is not your money yet." I snapped. And I am paying for the mahogany. If you want to sue me for it later, go ahead. He glared at me with pure hatred, but he backed down because the funeral director was staring at him with open disgust. During the service, Trent didn't shed a tear. He spent the entire time on his phone, hiding it behind a hymnal, texting. I saw him scrolling through Zillow, looking at luxury condos in downtown Detroit. At the graveside, while the priest was saying the final prayers, Trent leaned over to me and whispered, "I talked to a realtor. This lake house sits on prime land. If we bulldoze the cabin, we can split the lot and sell it for double. I'm listing it next week." I looked at him, standing there in his black suit that was slightly too tight, his eyes gleaming with avarice, and I felt a wave of nausea. He was talking about bulldozing the home his grandfather built with his own hands while the man was being lowered into the earth. "Can we just bury him first?" I whispered back, my voice trembling with rage. "You're so sentimental," he scoffed. "Business never sleeps, Mallory." That night, after the wake, Trent opened a bottle of expensive scotch he had found in Silas's cupboard. He poured himself a glass and sat in Silas's favorite armchair, putting his feet up on the coffee table. To Silas, he toasted, smirking. "Thanks for checking out, old man. Your sacrifice is my gain." "You're disgusting," I said from the doorway. He laughed. "I'm rich." "Rich people aren't disgusting, Mallory. They're eccentric. You better get used to it. Or..." He paused, looking me up and down with that predatory gaze I had come to dread. "Or maybe you won't have to." I didn't understand what he meant then. I thought he was just being his usual jerk self. I didn't realize he was already planning his exit strategy. He wasn't just planning to sell the house, he was planning to discard the wife. In the week between the funeral and the reading of the will, Trent went insane. There is no other word for it. He didn't have the money in his hand yet, probate takes time, but he acted as if he had won the Powerball. He maxed out every credit card we had. He took out a high-interest payday loan. "You have to spend money to look like money," he told me when I found a receipt for a $3,000 suit. "Trent, we are already in debt." I pleaded. "What if the inheritance isn't as much as you think? What if there are taxes?" "Shut up," he screamed. Grandpa was loaded. I saw the bank statements years ago. There's millions. Millions. A few grand on a suit is peanuts. He stopped coming home for dinner. He was always out with associates. I knew what that meant. He was out drinking, gambling, and showing off. He bought a Rolex on credit. He started test driving Porsches. But the most chilling part was how he began to separate his life from mine. One evening, I came home to find him on his laptop. He didn't close it fast enough. I saw the screen. It was a listing for a penthouse apartment in the city. "Bachelor Pad Dream," the headline read. "Are we moving?" I asked quietly. He spun around in his chair. "I am looking at investment properties. Real estate is the best place to park cash. It says Bachelor Pad, Trent. 1 bedroom. It's a marketing term, Mallory. God, why are you always so suspicious? You're suffocating me." He stood up and paced the room. "You know, Dion was telling me that successful men often have separate residences. For focus. Maybe I'll get a place in the city for work, and you can stay here." "Here? In this drafty house with the leaking roof?" "It's a perfectly good house. You're the one who wanted to stay here all these years. Now suddenly it's not good enough?" He was setting the stage. He was creating a narrative where I was the ungrateful one, the burden. Then came the pressure. "Mallory," he said one night, his voice deceptively calm. "I've been thinking. When the money comes, it's going to be complicated. taxes, estate laws, all that legal mumbo-jumbo. And it might be better if we kept our finances separate. Just on paper. To protect the assets from creditors. What creditors? I don't know. Just generally. In this economy, you never know. I was thinking maybe you should sign a postnuptial agreement. Just stating that the inheritance is solely mine. You know, just for tax purposes. I looked at him. It is solely yours, Trent. Inheritances aren't usually marital property unless you commingle the funds. I don't want your grandfather's money. I just want you to pay off our debts and maybe fix the car. He narrowed his eyes. You say that now. But women get greedy. I need protection. I need to make sure you're not going to try and take half of my birthright. Your birthright? I laughed, a bitter, dry sound. You ignored him for years. I wiped his ass, Trent. If anyone earned that money, it was me. But I don't want it. I just want my husband back. That husband is gone, he muttered under his breath. He was poor. I'm not poor anymore. He didn't produce the postnup then. He had a better idea. A faster idea. He realized that a postnup takes time to negotiate. A divorce, if done quickly and ruthlessly, cuts the tie cleanly. I noticed he was spending hours on the phone with a friend named Marcus. I later found out Marcus wasn't a friend, he was a shady lawyer known for aggressive divorce tactics. Trent was getting coaching. He was learning exactly how to blindside me. He started picking fights over nothing. If I breathed too loud, he yelled. If I left a light on, he accused me of sabotaging his wealth. He was trying to make me miserable enough to leave him, so he could play the victim. But I was stubborn. I was loyal to a fault. I took the abuse, thinking it was just grief or stress. I didn't know that he had already drafted the papers. I didn't know that while I was sleeping next to him, he was mentally dividing our assets, giving himself the millions and leaving me with the debt. The countdown had begun. The inheritance reading was scheduled for Wednesday. It was Monday night when he finally dropped the axe. Monday night. The night before the eviction. The atmosphere in the house was suffocating, like the air before a tornado touches down. Trent had been pacing the living room for hours, checking his watch, checking his phone. I was sitting at the kitchen table, paying bills. Or trying to. We were short on the electric bill again. Trent, I said tentatively. Can you transfer $50? I need to pay the light bill or they're going to cut it off tomorrow. He stopped pacing. He looked at me, and for the first time in weeks, he didn't look angry. He looked cold. Detached. Like a scientist looking at a rat in a maze. $50, he repeated. Always begging for scraps. It's pathetic, Mallory. It's the light bill, Trent. It's not for shoes. It doesn't matter, he walked over to the table and snatched the bill from my hand. He crumbled it into a ball and threw it on the floor. We don't need to pay it. What? Of course we do. We need electricity. You need electricity, he corrected me. I won't be here. My heart skipped a beat. What are you talking about? He pulled a chair out and sat opposite me. He leaned forward, his hands clasped on the table. He looked like he was about to conduct a business transaction. I'm done, Mallory. I'm done with this life. I'm done with the poverty. And I'm done with you. The words hung in the air. I heard them, but my brain refused to process them. You're tired, Trent. You're grieving. Stop it, he slammed his hand on the table. Stop making excuses for me. I am not grieving. I am celebrating. I am about to be a multimillionaire, and I don't want to drag a deadweight anchor like you into my new life. A dead weight? I whispered, my voice trembling. I supported you for 25 years. I paid your gambling debts. I fed you. I clothed you. And that's why I resent you, he said, his eyes narrowing. Every time I look at you, I see my failures. I see the woman who saw me at my lowest. I don't want that reminder. I want a woman who looks at me and sees a king. You look at me and see a charity case. I see my husband, I cried. Well, stop looking. Because I filed the papers today. He reached into his jacket pocket, the new suit jacket he bought on credit, and pulled out a thick envelope. He tossed it onto the table. What is this? Divorce papers. Expedited. My lawyer, Marcus, says if we file as uncontested, it can be done in 24 hours. No waiting period if we both waive the counseling. 24 hours? Trent, you can't be serious. You want to throw away 25 years in one day? I want to be a free man when I walk into that lawyer's office on Wednesday to pick up my check, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. I don't want you getting a single cent of Grandpa's money. It's mine. If we are still married, you might try to claim alimony based on my new income. If we are divorced before the assets transfer, you get nothing. Just what we have now. Which is nothing. I screamed. We have debt. Exactly. You keep your debt, I keep my fortune. It's fair. You're used to being poor. You're good at it. He stood up. Here's the deal. You sign these papers tonight. You agree to a clean break. No alimony, no asset division. You take your car, which is broken, your clothes, and you leave. If you do that, I might give you a few $1,000s cash later, out of the kindness of my heart. To help you get settled. And if I don't sign? He smiled, a cruel, ugly twisting of his lips. If you don't sign, I will fight you. I will drag this out. I will use my inheritance to hire the best lawyers in the state. I will bury you in legal fees. I will make sure you end up homeless and bankrupt. I will destroy you, Mallory. I swear to God. I looked at the man I had slept beside for a quarter of a century. The man whose head I had cradled when he had the flu. The man I had defended to my friends when they called him a loser. He meant it. He would destroy me just to save a few percentage points of his wealth. I looked at the papers. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely see the text. You want me to leave? I asked. Now? Tonight might be pushing it, he checked his watch. But definitely by tomorrow morning. I want you out before I go to the lawyer on Wednesday. I want to walk in there a single man. But, where will I go? You have friends. Go to Patty's. Go to a shelter. I don't care, Mallory. Just go. He pushed a pen toward me. Sign. Sign and liberate yourself. You know you're miserable too. I wasn't miserable until that moment. I was tired, yes. But I loved him. Or I loved the idea of him. But looking at him now, seeing the monster beneath the skin, I realized I didn't love this. I picked up the pen. Fine, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I'll sign. But not because I'm afraid of you, Trent. Because I deserve better than you. Yeah, save the speeches, he tapped the paper. Just sign on the dotted line. I signed. I signed away my marriage. I signed away my home. I signed away my past. Trent snatched the papers the moment the ink hit the page. He checked the signature, nodded, and stuffed them back into the envelope. Smart girl, he smirked. Now, pack. You have until 8 a.m. tomorrow. Anything left behind goes in the trash. He turned and walked into the bedroom, whistling. Whistling. As if he hadn't just executed his wife's soul. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, listening to him whistling in the other room. I felt like I was floating outside of my body. The pain was so immense it didn't register as pain anymore, it felt like shock. I stood up and went to the closet. I pulled out my 2 old suitcases. I started packing. Not crying. Just packing. But as I folded my humble clothes, a strange thought crossed my mind. Trent was so sure of his victory. So sure of his money. But he had forgotten one thing. He had forgotten Silas. Silas, who saw everything. Silas, who had held my hand in the hospital and promised to fix it. Did Silas know? Could he have foreseen this? I zipped up the suitcase. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing: Trent Vance was celebrating too early. And as I dragged my bags to the door, preparing to step out into the cold night that would lead to the morning of my eviction, I had no idea that the signature I just put on that paper was actually the key to his destruction. The next morning, at exactly 7:55 a.m., I stood on the front porch of the house I had called home for half my life. My 2 suitcases were beside me. They looked pathetic against the snow-covered concrete, frayed at the edges, zippers struggling to hold in 25 years of memories. It was snowing again. Big, fat flakes that stuck to my eyelashes. I shivered, pulling my thin coat tighter around me. I hadn't slept a wink. I had spent the night staring at the ceiling, listening to Trent snoring in the bedroom that used to be ours. He slept like a baby. He slept like a man with a clear conscience, or perhaps, a man with no conscience at all. When I walked out the door 5 minutes ago, Trent was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee from my favorite mug. He didn't offer to help me with the bags. He didn't even look up from his phone. "Leave the keys on the counter," was the only thing he said. Not goodbye. Not "I'm sorry it ended this way." Just a command. I left the keys. And with them, I left a piece of my soul. I dragged my luggage down the icy driveway to where Patty's car was waiting. Patty is my best friend, a firecracker of a woman who works in the billing department at the hospital. She had driven over the moment I called her, screaming obscenities about Trent the entire way. Patty jumped out of her car, her breath puffing in the cold air. She looked at me, and her face crumbled. "Oh, Mal," she whispered, opening her arms. I collapsed into her hug. I didn't cry. I think my body was in shock. I just felt heavy. Unbearably heavy. Like my bones had turned to lead. "Get in the car," Patty ordered, grabbing my suitcases with a ferocity that startled me. "I'm going to run him over. I swear to God, I'm going to drive this Honda right through the living room window." "No, Patty," I mumbled, climbing into the passenger seat. "Just drive. Please. Just get me away from here." The drive to Patty's apartment was a blur. I stared out the window at the gray, slushy streets of Detroit, wondering how my life had come to this. Yesterday, I was a wife. I had a home. I had a future, bleak, maybe, but predictable. Today, I was a 52-year-old homeless woman with a bank account that was overdrawn and a heart that was shattered. Patty lives in a small 2-bedroom apartment near the hospital. It's cozy, filled with plants and books. She set me up in her guest room, which doubles as her sewing room. "You can stay as long as you need," she said, bustling around, making tea, trying to fix a problem that couldn't be fixed with chamomile. "I mean it, Mal, don't you worry about a thing." I sat on the edge of the twin bed, staring at the wall. "I signed the papers, Patty. I signed them." "I know, honey. I know." He said I was a dead weight. He said I was holding him back from his destiny. He's a narcissist and a fool. Patty slammed a mug onto the coaster. He's projecting, Mel. He was the dead weight. You carried him. You paid his debts. You nursed his grandfather. It doesn't matter, I whispered. He won. He's getting millions of dollars tomorrow, and I'm here. That first night at Patty's was the longest night of my life. I felt a phantom pain, like an amputated limb. I kept reaching for Trent in my sleep, only to hit the cold wall. I woke up gasping, panic seizing my chest. The reality would hit me in waves. I am alone. I have no retirement fund. I have no children to comfort me. I gave everything to a man who threw me away like garbage. I felt stupid. That's the worst part of betrayal, the shame. I felt shame that I hadn't seen it coming. I felt shame that I had loved him. I felt shame that I was 52 and starting over from zero. I looked at myself in the mirror of Patty's guest bathroom. My eyes were red and swollen. My hair was graying at the roots. Trent was right, wasn't he? I was old. Who would want me? What kind of future could I possibly have? I didn't go to work that day. I called in sick. I couldn't face the world. I lay in bed, curled into a fetal position, and wished I could just disappear. But while I was lying there, drowning in self-pity, Trent was busy erasing me completely. While I was mourning the death of my marriage, Trent was dancing on its grave. Thanks to social media and mutual friends who were too horrified to look away, I got a play-by-play of Trent's liberation. He wasn't grieving. He wasn't reflecting. He was spiraling into a manic episode of greed and lust. He hadn't received the inheritance check yet. The reading of the will was scheduled for tomorrow, Wednesday. But Trent, in his infinite arrogance, had already started spending money he didn't have. Patty came into the room Tuesday evening, her face pale. She was holding her phone. "You don't want to see this," she said. "Show me." I sat up. "Mal, really?" "Show me, Patty." She handed me the phone. It was Facebook. Trent had posted a status update, finally free. The chains are off. Big things coming. Hashtag new life, hashtag millionaire mindset, hashtag upgrade. But it wasn't the status that made me sick. It was the photo attached to it. It was a selfie of Trent, grinning like a maniac, holding a glass of champagne. And sitting next to him, leaning on his shoulder, was a girl. She couldn't have been more than 23. She had platinum blonde extensions, heavy makeup, and lips that looked like they might pop if she smiled too hard. She was wearing a tank top that left very little to the imagination. "Who is she?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Her name is Crystal." Patty spat the name out like poison. "She was a bartender at that club Trent likes to go to. Apparently, they've been friends for a few months." "Friends," I repeated. The late nights. The networking meetings. The passwords on his phone. It all made sense. He hadn't just been planning to leave me for money, he had been planning to replace me with a younger model the second he could afford her. And look at this, Patty swiped the screen. It was a photo of a car. A bright red Porsche 911. The caption read, "Test drive today. Picking it up Wednesday." She purrs like a kitten. "He bought a Porsche?" I whispered. "We have $20,000 in credit card debt, and he bought a Porsche?" "He put a deposit down," Patty explained. "My cousin works at the dealership." Trent went in there waving his grandfather's obituary around like a credit check. He told them he was inheriting $5 million this week. He signed a predatory loan agreement with a massive interest rate because he's so sure the cash is coming. He was insane. He was literally banking on a dead man's money to fund a midlife crisis. Then, my phone buzzed. A text message. From Trent. My heart hammered against my ribs. I picked it up. It wasn't an apology. It was a picture. It was a photo of our bedroom closet. My side of the closet. It was empty. He had taken everything I left behind, the old winter coats, the shoes I didn't pack, the boxes of sentimental trinkets, and he had thrown them into black garbage bags. The text read, "Cleaning house. Crystal needs the closet space. She has a lot of clothes. Trash pickup is tomorrow. Come get it if you want your junk, otherwise, it's gone." I stared at the screen. Crystal. He was moving her in. Today. Not even 24 hours after he kicked me out. He was moving his mistress into the home I had paid for, into the bedroom where I had slept, and giving her my closet space. I felt a surge of bile in my throat. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. When I came back, wiping my mouth, something inside me had shifted. The sadness was still there, yes. But it was being overtaken by a cold, hard rage. He called my life junk. He called me junk. He's moving her in, I told Patty, my voice raspy. He's giving her my closet. Patty looked ready to grab a baseball bat. I'm calling the police. That's adultery. It's not adultery anymore, I said quietly. We're divorced. Remember? Expedited. As of this morning, I am nothing to him. Mal, you can't let him get away with this. What can I do, Patty? I have no money for a lawyer. I signed the papers. I waived my rights. I was stupid. You weren't stupid. You were abused. You were gaslit. I lay back down, staring at the ceiling. The image of Crystal, with her smooth skin and her expensive extensions, burned in my mind. Trent wanted a trophy. He wanted a decoration. And he had discarded me because I was worn out from polishing his ego for 25 years. I turned off my phone. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I just want to sleep. But I couldn't sleep. I lay there thinking about Silas. Did he know his grandson was this vile? Did he know Trent was parading a gold digger around before the grass on his grave had even grown? And then, just as I was drifting into a nightmare-filled doze, my phone rang. It wasn't a text. It was a call. I looked at the ID. It was a number I didn't recognize. But the area code was local. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? Mrs. Vance? A deep, professional male voice. Ms. It's Ms. Vance now, I corrected automatically. Who is this? This is Thaddeus Sterling. I am the attorney representing the estate of the late Silas Vance. My stomach dropped. Oh. I think you need to call Trent. My ex-husband. He's handling everything. I have spoken to Mr. Vance, Mr. Sterling said, his voice clipped and cold. But this call is for you. I need you to be at my office tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. for the reading of the will. I don't understand, I said, sitting up in bed, clutching the phone like a lifeline. Why do I need to be there? Trent and I are divorced. I signed the papers yesterday. I have no claim to the estate. Trent made that very clear. Mr. Vance has indeed informed me of the recent change in your marital status, Mr. Sterling said. There was a note of distaste in his voice that I couldn't quite place. However, the instructions left by Mr. Silas Vance are explicit. All interested parties must be present. That includes you, Mallory. But I'm not an interested party. I'm the ex-wife. Mallory, Mr. Sterling's voice softened slightly, losing its professional edge. I knew Silas well. He spoke of you often. He specifically requested your presence. He told me, if anything happens, make sure Mallory is in the room. No matter what. He said that? Tears pricked my eyes. Even from the grave, Silas was thinking of me. He did. And Mrs. Verna Vance will be there too. She asked me to ensure you come. She said she needs moral support. Aunt Verna. The only person in Trent's family who had treated me with kindness. If she was going to be there, facing Trent and his arrogance, I couldn't leave her alone. Okay, I whispered. I'll come. But I'm not coming for the money. I just want to pay my respects to Silas. That is all we ask. See you at 10 a.m. sharp. And Mallory? Dress comfortably. It might be a long morning. I hung up. Patty was staring at me from the doorway. The lawyer? She asked. He wants me at the reading tomorrow. Why? I don't know. Silas wanted me there. Patty's eyes widened. A slow, mischievous grin spread across her face. Mal, what if? What if he left you something? Maybe he left you a little cash? Or a keepsake? I doubt it. I shook my head, getting out of bed. Trent is the heir. Silas was old-fashioned. He believed in bloodlines. But I have to go. For Verna. And for Silas. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of purpose. I wasn't going there to fight Trent. I was going there to say goodbye to the grandfather I loved. I showered and looked at my limited wardrobe. My best clothes were in a garbage bag somewhere in Crystal's, closet. I had a pair of black slacks and a modest gray sweater. It wasn't fancy. It was clean and respectful. I put on my coat, brushed my short, uneven hair, and looked in the mirror. You are Mallory Vance, I told my reflection. You are a survivor. You walked through a blizzard to save a man's life. You can walk into a law office and face your ex-husband. Patty drove me. She wanted to come in, but I told her to wait in the car. This was something I had to do alone. The law office of Sterling and Associates was located in a sleek building downtown. The lobby smelled of expensive leather and old money. My cheap boots squeaked on the marble floor as I walked to the receptionist. Mallory Vance, I said, holding my head high. I'm here for the Silas Vance reading. Go right in, Ms. Vance. Conference room B. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. I walked down the hallway. I could hear voices coming from the conference room. Loud voices. I don't care about the parking validation. I'm about to own this building. It was Trent. I took a deep breath, placed my hand on the heavy oak door, and pushed it open. The room was large, dominated by a massive mahogany table. At the head of the table sat Mr. Sterling, a silver-haired man with glasses perched on his nose. To his right sat Aunt Verna, looking small and fragile in her black morning dress. And to his left, Trent was leaning back in a leather chair, his feet propped up on the table leg. He was wearing a flashy new suit that looked too shiny under the fluorescent lights. And draped over the chair next to him was Crystal. She was popping gum. Smack. Smack. She wore a short skirt and a low-cut top that was entirely inappropriate for a legal proceeding. She was scrolling on her phone, looking bored. When I entered, the room went silent. Trent looked up. His eyes narrowed. He took his feet down. What is she doing here? He barked, pointing a finger at me. I told you, Sterling. We are divorced. She's a random civilian. Get her out. Ms. Vance is here at my invitation, Mr. Sterling said calmly, not looking up from his papers. Please, have a seat, Mallory. This is ridiculous. Trent slammed his hand on the table. She's here to beg. Look at her. She's pathetic. Listen, Mallory, if you think you're getting a cut, you're delusional. The papers are signed. I ignored him. I walked past him, smelling the stale alcohol on his breath and the overpowering cheap perfume coming from Crystal. I walked straight to Aunt Verna. "Hello, Aunt Verna," I said softly. "Oh, Mallory," Verna stood up and hugged me tight. She smelled like lavender and sorrow. "Thank you for coming. I couldn't bear to sit here alone with them." She gestured vaguely at Trent and his flavor of the month. I sat down next to Verna. I folded my hands on the table. I didn't look at Trent. I didn't look at Crystal. I looked at Mr. Sterling. "I'm ready," I said. Trent scoffed. "Yeah, she's ready to be disappointed." "Go ahead, Sterling. Read the part where I get everything, so we can get out of here. I have a Porsche to pick up at noon." The air in the conference room was thick enough to choke on. On one side of the table, you had the quiet dignity of grief, Aunt Verna and me. On the other side, you had the loud, brash vulgarity of greed, Trent and Crystal. Mr. Sterling adjusted his glasses. He looked at Trent with a gaze that could freeze water. "Mr. Vance, if you interrupt me one more time, I will have security escort you out, and we will proceed without you." "You can't do that." Trent sneered, but he sat back down, crossing his arms. "I'm the heir." "You are a beneficiary," Sterling corrected. "There is a difference. Now, are we ready?" "Who's the old lady?" Crystal whispered loudly to Trent, pointing a manicured nail at Verna. "That's my aunt." "Nobody important," Trent whispered back, loud enough for us to hear. "She gets a cat or something, probably." Verna stiffened beside me. I reached under the table and squeezed her hand. She squeezed back hard. "I, Silas Edward Vance, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament," Sterling began. His voice was rhythmic, soothing. He went through the small bequests first. "To my sister, Verna Vance, I leave my collection of antique books and the sum of $100,000 to ensure her comfort in her twilight years." Verna gasped. "Oh, Silas. I didn't need money." She dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. "That's nice," Trent muttered. "Peanuts. Keep going. To the St. Mary's Children's Hospital, I leave a donation of $50,000. Tax write-off," Trent nodded approvingly. "Smart man." "And now," Sterling paused. He turned a page. The paper rustled loudly in the silent room. "To the bulk of my estate." Trent sat up straighter. He literally licked his lips. It was predatory and repulsive. Crystal stopped chewing her gum. "My estate includes the primary residence at Lake Orion, the investment portfolio held at Chase Bank, the vintage car collection, and the liquid cash assets." Sterling looked up over his glasses. "The total estimated value of these assets is approximately $5.2 million. $5.2 million. I felt the breath leave my lungs. I knew Silas was comfortable, but I had no idea he was that wealthy. He lived so simply. He drove a truck that was held together by duct tape. Boom! Trent slammed his fist on the table, jumping up. $5 million. Did you hear that, baby? $5 million. He grabbed Crystal and kissed her violently. She squealed. "Oh my God, Trent. We're rich. We can buy the boat." "Sit down, Mr. Vance," Sterling said sharply. "I am not finished." "What is there to finish?" Trent laughed, his face flushed with victory. "It comes to me. I'm the grandson. The only male heir. Just give me the check, Sterling. I have big plans. I'm going to bulldoze that cabin and build a resort." Verna made a small, wounded sound. "Sit Down. Sterling's voice was like a whip crack. Trent slowly sat back down, a smirk plastered on his face. Okay. Do the formalities. Drag it out. I charge by the hour now, you know. Mr. Sterling took a sip of water. He looked at Trent, then he looked at me. There was something in his eyes, pity? Respect? Anticipation? The distribution of the main estate is subject to a specific condition, Sterling read. A condition that Silas Vance added to this will 6 months ago, shortly after his recovery from pneumonia. Condition? Trent frowned. What condition? Like, I have to keep his last name? Done. Easy. No, Sterling said. It is a morality clause. Clause 4, Section B, the protection of family values. I felt a shiver run down my spine. Morality clause? Silas? Quote, Sterling continued. I have observed my grandson, Trent Vance, for many years. I have seen his ambition, which is good, but I have also seen his selfishness, which is rot. I have seen how he treats his wife, Mallory Vance. Mallory saved my life in the blizzard when Trent was too busy drinking to care. Mallory cared for me when Trent couldn't be bothered. Trent's face turned a mottled shade of purple. This is slander. The old man was senile. Therefore, Sterling raised his voice to drown out Trent. I bequeath the entirety of my estate, the $5.2 million and all properties, to my grandson Trent Vance. Trent grinned again. See? I told you. He was just lecturing me. He still gave it to me. Provided that, Sterling emphasized the words, at the time of my death, and for a period of no less than 1 continuous year after my death, Trent Vance remains lawfully married to and residing with his wife, Mallory Vance. The room went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. I blinked. I looked at Sterling. I looked at Trent. What? Trent whispered. What did you say? The condition for your inheritance, Sterling explained slowly, as if talking to a toddler, is that you must be married to Mallory. A happy, stable marriage. Silas believed that Mallory was the only moral compass you had. He wanted to ensure you didn't abandon the woman who supported you. But... Trent looked around wildly. But that's blackmail. That's controlling from the grave. It is his money, Sterling shrugged. He can attach whatever strings he wants. Sterling then turned the page. The clause continues, if, at the time of my death, or within 1 year following it, Trent Vance divorces Mallory Vance, or initiates divorce proceedings, or abandons her, then he has failed the test of character. Trent's face went white. Pale, chalky white. And in that event, Sterling read on, the entirety of the estate shall bypass Trent Vance completely. Bypass? Trent choked out. To who? The charity? The cat? No, Sterling smiled. A genuine, small smile. In the event of a divorce, the entirety of the estate shall be transferred to the person who actually embodied the values of loyalty and care, Mrs. Mallory Vance. The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade that had just dropped. Transferred to Mrs. Mallory Vance. I sat there, frozen. My hands were gripping the edge of the mahogany table so hard my knuckles were white. I felt Verna squeeze my arm, a silent cheer. No, Trent whispered. He stood up, knocking his chair over. No. That's not right. Read it again. You read it wrong. I read it correctly, Mr. Vance, Sterling said calmly. It says if we divorce. Trent shouted, pointing a shaking finger at me. But. Mr. Vance, Sterling pulled a folder from his briefcase. My office does due diligence before every reading. I checked the court records this morning. Sterling pulled out a document. I recognized it. It was the document Trent had forced me to sign 2 nights ago. I see here a final decree of divorce, Sterling said, holding it up. Filed via the expedited process. Signed by both parties. Timestamped yesterday at 4 p.m. He looked at Trent over the rim of his glasses. You paid an extra $500 to rush this through, didn't you, Mr. Vance? Trent opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked like a fish gasping for air on a dock. You wanted to be a single man when you walked in here, Sterling continued mercilessly. You wanted to ensure Mallory didn't get a cent. You succeeded in the first part. You are indeed a single man. And because you are a single man, you have violated Clause 4, Section B of the will. But I didn't know. Trent screamed. I didn't know about the clause. If I knew, I wouldn't have done it. That is exactly the point, Verna spoke up for the first time. Her voice was shaky but defiant. Silas wanted to see what you would do when you thought nobody was watching. He wanted to see if you would honor your wife when you thought you didn't have to. You failed, Trent. You failed spectacularly. Shut up, you old hag. Trent roared. He turned to me. His eyes were wild, bloodshot. Mallory. Tell him. Tell him we're not really divorced. Tell him it was just a break. A paperwork error. I looked at him. I looked at the man who had kicked me out into the snow. The man who had moved his mistress into my home. The man who had called me junk. We are divorced, Trent, I said, my voice quiet but steady. You evicted me. You threw my clothes in garbage bags. You told me I was dead weight. I was joking. Trent laughed, a high-pitched, hysterical sound. It was a prank. Baby, you know me. I'm a joker. I love you. Crystal? He turned to the blonde girl who was staring at him with wide, horrified eyes. Tell them. Tell them I love Mallory. Crystal looked at Trent. Then she looked at the paper in Sterling's hand. Then she looked at me. Wait, Crystal said, her voice nasally. So, he doesn't get the $5 million? She gets it? That is correct, Sterling nodded. As of this moment, Mallory Vance is the sole beneficiary of the Silas Vance estate. You broke scrub. Crystal yelled at Trent. She stood up, grabbing her fake Louis Vuitton bag. You told me you were rich. You told me you bought the Porsche. I did. I mean, I will. Trent grabbed her arm. Crystal, wait. We can fix this. Get off me. Crystal shoved him away. I'm not dating a broke loser with a mountain of debt. You owe the bank for that loan, remember? Your negative net worth, you idiot. She stormed out of the room, her heels clicking furiously on the marble. Trent stood alone. He looked at the empty door. Then he looked back at the table. At the millions of dollars that had just slipped through his fingers because of his own greed. The silence that followed Crystal's exit was heavy. Trent was trembling. He looked small. The shiny suit suddenly looked like a costume. Mr. Sterling cleared his throat. So, to recap. The condition of marriage has been violated. The primary beneficiary is disqualified. The secondary beneficiary, Mallory Vance, is hereby awarded the full estate. He slid a stack of papers toward me. Ms. Vance, if you would just sign here, here, and here. We can begin the transfer of funds and the title deeds to the properties immediately. I looked at the papers. $5.2 million. It was enough to retire. Enough to buy a house. Enough to travel. Enough to never scrub a floor or change a bedpan again. It was freedom. And it was justice. No! Trent lunged forward. You can't sign that. That's my money. I'm the Vance. She's a nobody. Security. Sterling pressed a button on the table. Two large men in uniforms stepped into the room immediately. They must have been waiting right outside. Mr. Vance, please step back, one of the guards said. Trent backed away, breathing hard. He looked at me, his eyes shifting from rage to panic. He realized that intimidation wasn't working. He realized he had no leverage. So, he did the only thing a coward knows how to do. He switched tactics. He dropped to his knees. Right there, on the expensive carpet. He fell to his knees in front of my chair. He clasped his hands together like he was praying. Mallory, he sobbed. Tears, real tears, or at least, tears of real terror, streamed down his face. Mallory, please. Don't do this. I'm sorry. I was stressed. I was grieving. I didn't mean any of it. You didn't mean to divorce me? I asked, looking down at him. You expedited the papers, Trent. You paid extra. I was confused. Marcus gave me bad advice. I love you, Mel. We've been together 25 years. You can't just throw that away for money. Me? I laughed, a sound of pure disbelief. I am throwing it away for money? You kicked me out because you thought you were rich. You replaced me with a 20-year-old because you thought I was too old for your new tax bracket. She meant nothing. She was just a distraction. I was lonely. He crawled closer, trying to grab the hem of my pants. Baby, please. We can get remarried. Right now. We can go to the courthouse today. We can annul the divorce. Just don't sign those papers. If you take the money, you destroy me. I have debts, Mal. I bought the Porsche. I rented the penthouse. If I don't get this money, I go to jail. They'll arrest me for fraud. I looked at him. I saw the sweat on his forehead. I saw the desperation. For a second, just a split second, my old instinct kicked in. The instinct to save him. The instinct to be the good wife, the fixer, the mule. He was my husband. He was in trouble. But then I looked at Aunt Verna. She was shaking her head slowly. And I thought of Silas. Silas, who died knowing his grandson was a vulture. Silas, who wrote this clause because he knew, that Trent would betray me. If I saved Trent now, I would be betraying Silas. I picked up the pen. Trent, I said softly. Yes. Yes, baby? He looked up, hope lighting his eyes. You said you wanted a wife who matches your status. I didn't mean it. I think you did. And you were right. We don't match anymore. I signed the first page. Mallory Vance. No! Trent screamed. I signed the second page. Mallory Vance. Mallory, don't. I'll do anything. I'll be your servant. I'll wash your feet. I signed the final page. I put the pen down. I looked at Mr. Sterling. It's done. Thank you, Ms. Vance, Sterling smiled. Congratulations. You are now a very wealthy woman. Trent collapsed onto the floor, curling into a ball, sobbing like a child who had dropped his ice cream. But I felt no pity. I felt lighter than I had in 20 years. If you are still listening to this point, please help me by liking this video and commenting the number 1 below. This lets me know that you are amazing, and I understand that you are walking this journey of justice with me. Your support is a huge encouragement, cheering me on. Please comment number 1 so I can recognize you, and now, listen as I tell you what happened next. Watching a narcissist collapse is a strange thing. You expect to feel happy, but mostly, you just feel disgust. It's like watching a building crumble. It's loud, messy, and you just want to get away from the dust. Trent lay on the floor, weeping. I'm ruined, he moaned into the carpet. I'm ruined. The bank is going to take everything. Mr. Vance, Mr. Sterling said, standing up. The reading is concluded. You have no business here. Please leave. I can't leave. Trent scrambled to his feet. He looked at me, his eyes wild. Mallory, you have to help me. You owe me. I gave you the best years of my life. You took the best years of my life, I corrected him, standing up. I grabbed my purse. And you gave me debt and heartache in return. I'll sue. Trent shouted, pointing a shaking finger at Sterling. This is fraud. You tricked me. I'll contest the will. On what grounds? Sterling asked coolly. The will is ironclad. We have video evidence of Silas signing it, confirming his sound mind. And we have the divorce decree you signed yesterday. You have no leg to stand on. I have rights. You have nothing, Trent, Verna spoke up. She stood next to me, looking like a warrior in her black dress. You have exactly what you deserve. Trent lunged toward me again. Mallory, listen. Half. Give me half. It's fair. We were married for 25 years. Half is mine by law. We are divorced, I reminded him. And in the divorce decree you drafted, you specifically waived all rights to future assets and spousal support. Remember? You wanted a clean break so I couldn't touch your money. Now, you can't touch mine. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He had set the trap for me, and he had walked right into it. Security, Sterling nodded to the guards. The two men grabbed Trent by the arms. Get off me! Trent screamed. Mallory! Mal! Please! I have nowhere to go. I gave up the lease on the house. I'm homeless. You have a Porsche, I said coldly. Maybe you can sleep in that. Oh wait, you probably can't afford the payments on that either. They dragged him out of the room. His screams echoed down the hallway. Mallory! I love you. Mallory! When the door closed, silence returned to the room. A beautiful, peaceful silence. I sat back down, my legs trembling. Are you okay? Verna asked, putting a hand on my shoulder. I think so. I took a deep breath. I feel free. You are free, Sterling smiled. And you are wealthy. The funds will be in your account within 48 hours. The deeds to the house and the lake property are being transferred now. You also own the contents of the house, which I understand Trent tried to vacate? He threw my clothes out, I said. But he left all his junk. Well, it's your junk now. Or your bonfire fuel. I laughed. It was a weak, watery laugh, but it was real. There is one more thing, Sterling said. He opened a drawer and pulled out a small envelope. It had my name on it in shaky handwriting. Silas left this for you. To be read after the dust settled. I took the envelope. My name was written in Silas's distinctive scrawl. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of notebook paper. Dear Mallory. If you are reading this, it means that idiot grandson of mine finally showed his true colors. I'm sorry I had to die to prove it to you. I knew he would leave you. I saw the way he looked at you, like you were furniture he wanted to replace. But I also saw the way you looked at yourself. You forgot your worth, my dear. You forgot that you are the strong one. This money isn't a gift. It's a refund. It's payment for 25 years of service to a man who didn't deserve a second of your time. Don't feel guilty. Don't give him a dime. Use this to find the Mallory who wanted to be a doctor. She's still in there. Love, Grandpa Silas. I pressed the letter to my chest and cried. Not the hopeless tears of yesterday, but tears of gratitude. Silas had played the long game. He had set a trap for the wolf to protect the lamb. He knew, I whispered. He knew everything. He was a wise man, Verna said. And he loved you very much. I wiped my eyes. Mr. Sterling, what happens to Trent now? Legally? Not your problem, Sterling said. He has significant debt. The creditors will likely seize his assets. He signed a lease on a penthouse he can't pay for. He will likely face bankruptcy. Good, I said. And I meant it. So, Ms. Vance, Sterling closed the folder. What is your first move? I thought about it. I thought about the cold house. I thought about the empty closet. I thought about Patty's guest room. First, I said, standing up. I'm going to take my Aunt Verna out for the most expensive lunch in the city. And then? Then I'm going to go get my house back. Lunch with Verna was wonderful. We went to a French bistro. I ordered champagne, real champagne, not the cheap stuff Trent used to buy to show off. We toasted to Silas. You know, Verna said, buttering a roll. I have something else to tell you. Sterling didn't mention it because it wasn't legally necessary once Trent divorced you, but we had insurance. Insurance? Silas installed cameras. I choked on my water. What? In the lake house. In his bedroom and the living room. About 6 months ago. He wanted to see if Trent ever visited when you weren't there. And he didn't. But the cameras recorded the few times Trent did show up while you were working. Mostly to look for valuables. Verna pulled out her phone. I saved a clip. Just in case Trent tries to contest the will, claiming he was a loving grandson. She played the video. It was grainy, but the audio was clear. It was from 2 months ago. Silas was in his wheelchair, looking out the window. Trent walked in. He didn't say hello. He started opening drawers. Silas, what are you looking for, boy? Trent, the deed, old man. Where is it? I want to make sure the title is clean for when I sell this dump. Silas, I'm not dead yet. Trent, yeah, well, you're taking your sweet time. Hurry up, will you? I have plans. I watched the video, my hand covering my mouth. He told his grandfather to hurry up and die. I have 10 more clips just like that, Verna said, putting the phone away. If he tries to sue you, Mallory, we release these to the public. He won't be able to show his face in this town again. He really is a monster, I whispered. Yes, Verna agreed. But he is a monster without teeth now. You have the power. After lunch, Patty picked me up. I told her everything. She screamed so loud she nearly crashed the car. 5 million. Mal. You're a millionaire. I am, I said, still dazed. We have to go to the house. We have to kick him out. Sterling said the deed is mine. I can change the locks. We drove to the house. My house. When we pulled into the driveway, I saw Trent's car, not the Porsche, he never got that, but his old sedan. He was sitting on the front steps, his head in his hands. His suitcases, the ones he had packed for his new life, were beside him. He looked up when we pulled in. He looked wrecked. His tie was undone, his eyes were puffy. He stood up and walked toward the car. Patty rolled down the window, ready to fight. "Mallory," Trent said, his voice hoarse. "Please. I can't get in. My key doesn't work." "I had a locksmith come an hour ago," I said calmly. "Mr. Sterling arranged it. But my stuff is inside. My computer. My clothes." "I packed them for you," I said. "They're in black garbage bags on the curb. Just like you did to me." He looked at the pile of black bags near the trash cans. "Mallory, be reasonable. Where am I supposed to go?" "I don't know, Trent. Maybe you can go to your penthouse?" "Oh wait, you don't have the deposit." "Maybe Crystal?" "Crystal blocked my number," he muttered, looking down. "Mal, please. Just let me stay in the guest room. Just for a few nights. Until I sort this out." We were family. I got out of the car. I stood in front of him. I wasn't afraid anymore. He was just a sad, pathetic man. "We were family," I said. "But you fired me from that position. You wanted a trophy. Go find one." "I'm sorry," he sobbed, reaching for me. Patty stepped in front of me, holding a can of pepper spray. "Back off, loser." She said no. Trent recoiled. He looked at me one last time. "You're heartless." "No," I said. "I'm just finally using my head." I turned around and walked up the steps to my front door. I put the new key in the lock. It turned smoothly. I opened the door and walked into my warm house. I closed the door on Trent. I heard him banging on it for a few minutes, screaming, begging. Then, silence. Finally, the sound of his car starting and driving away. I was home. The house was quiet. But it wasn't the lonely quiet of before. It was the quiet of ownership. I walked through the rooms. I saw the empty closet where my clothes used to be. I saw the dirty dishes Trent had left in the sink. I didn't clean them. I picked up the phone and called a cleaning service. "I want a deep clean," I told them. "Everything. I want every trace of the last 25 years scrubbed away. And throw out the recliner in the living room." Then I called a contractor. "I want to renovate the roof. And the kitchen. And turn the spare bedroom, the storage room, into a library. Yes, start Monday." I sat on the floor of the living room, drinking a cup of tea. I thought about Trent's accusation that I was heartless. Was I? No. I realized something profound in that moment. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting the wolf back into the sheep pen. I could forgive him for his weakness, I could forgive him for his greed, but I would never, ever let him hurt me again. I had spent my life defining my worth by how much I could endure. How much pain I could swallow. How hard I could work for someone else. Silas gave me a gift greater than money. He gave me permission to be selfish. I looked at my hands. They were still rough. They still looked like the hands of a worker. But they were my hands. And they held the keys to my future. I decided then and there what I would do. I wasn't going to just sit on this money. I wasn't going to become a hoarder like Trent. I was going to finish what I started 30 years ago. I went to the computer, Trent's old one, which I kept. I searched for adult medical programs and nursing degrees. I wasn't going to be a doctor, that ship had sailed, but I could become a nurse practitioner. I could run my own clinic. I could help people without answering to a boss who didn't respect me. I felt a fire in my belly that I hadn't felt since I was 20. My phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. It was Trent again. Mal, it's me. Listen, I'm at a motel. My card got declined. Can you just Venmo me $50? Just for food? Please. I'm hungry. $50. The exact amount I had asked him for to pay the light bill. The amount he had mocked me for. I deleted the voicemail. I blocked the number. I wasn't his banker anymore. I wasn't his mother. I went to the window and looked out at the snow. It was still falling, covering the driveway, covering the spot where Trent had stood. It looked clean. It looked fresh. Goodbye, Trent, I whispered to the glass. And thank you. Thank you for setting me free. The downfall of Trent Vance was swift, public, and absolutely self-inflicted. Because he had bragged so loudly about his incoming wealth, everyone in town knew he was supposed to be rich. When the truth came out, that he had been disinherited because he divorced his wife, he became the laughingstock of Detroit. The car dealership didn't just take back the Porsche, they sued him for breach of contract on the loan. The landlord of the penthouse sued him for the broken lease. The credit card companies, realizing there was no inheritance windfall coming to pay off the maxed-out cards, descended like vultures. Within 3 months, Trent filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. He lost everything. His car, his electronics, his dignity. I heard from Patty that he had moved back in with his parents. Well, his mother had passed, but his estrangement from his father ended out of necessity. He was sleeping in his childhood bedroom at age 54. He tried to get a job. But Trent hadn't worked in 5 years, and his reputation was trash. He ended up working at a car wash. One afternoon, about 6 months after the divorce, I pulled into that car wash. I didn't know he worked there. I was driving my new car, a sensible but luxurious SUV. I saw a man wiping down the tires of the car in front of me. He was wearing a blue jumpsuit. He looked older. Grayer. Defeated. It was Trent. My heart stopped for a second. He looked up and saw me. He saw the new car. He saw my new haircut, a chic bob with expensive highlights. He saw the diamond earrings I had bought for myself. He froze, rag in hand. I could have rolled down the window. I could have rubbed it in. I could have thrown a $50 bill at him. But I didn't. I just looked at him. I looked at him with the indifference of a stranger. He looked down, shame coloring his face red. He turned away and pretended to scrub a smudge on the bumper. I drove through. I didn't look back. He was just a ghost in my rearview mirror. A lesson I had learned the hard way. 1 year later. I stood in the center of a large, bright room. It smelled of fresh paint and hope. Welcome to the Silas Vance Women's Center, I said to the small crowd gathered for the ribbon cutting. I had used a significant portion of the inheritance to buy an old building and renovate it. It was a shelter and resource center for women over 40 who were facing divorce, displacement, or financial abuse. We offered legal aid, job training, and temporary housing. Aunt Verna stood next to me, beaming. He would be so proud, she whispered. I hope so, I smiled. I was also in school. It was hard being the oldest student in my nursing practitioner program, but I loved it. I was getting straight A's. I had traveled, too. I took Verna to Italy. We ate pasta in Rome and rode a gondola in Venice. I realized that life didn't end at 50. It was just a new chapter. I hadn't dated anyone. I wasn't ready. And honestly, I didn't need to. I had friends. I had Verna. I had my work. I was complete on my own. But life has a sense of humor. At the ribbon cutting, a man approached me. He was tall, with kind eyes and salt and pepper hair. Ms. Vance? He asked. I'm David. I'm the architect who worked on the library renovation. Oh, yes. David. It looks beautiful. I just wanted to say, I admire what you're doing. My mother went through something similar. This place, it's a sanctuary. Thank you. If you're ever free, I'd love to buy you a coffee. To hear more about your vision. I looked at him. No arrogance. No trophy wife stare. Just interest. I'm very busy with school, I said. I know. I can wait. I smiled. Ask me again in a month, David. It's a date, he grinned. I walked out of the center into the bright sunlight. I felt the wind on my face. It wasn't the cold, biting wind of that morning on the porch. It was a warm, gentle breeze. I still visit Silas's grave every Sunday. I bring him fresh flowers. Sometimes I bring him a coffee. I sit on the grass and I talk to him. I tell him about the women we helped at the center. I tell him about my grades. I tell him about Trent, briefly, just the facts. Yesterday, I went to the cemetery. It was the anniversary of the day I signed the divorce papers. The anniversary of the day I thought my life was over. I traced the letters on Silas's headstone. You were a sneaky old fox, I told him. But you were right. I stood up and looked around the quiet cemetery. I thought about the woman I was a year ago, scared, invisible, defining herself by a man who didn't love her. She is gone now. I am Mallory Vance. I am a millionaire, yes. But more importantly, I am a woman who knows her worth. I learned that sometimes, you have to lose everything to find yourself. Sometimes, the person who kicks you out is actually pushing you through the door to your destiny. And to anyone listening who feels trapped, who feels like they are too old or too tired to start over, you are not. Pack your bags. Sign the papers. Walk out the door. Your inheritance, the inheritance of your own life, is waiting for you. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, please share it with a friend who might need to hear it. And remember, the best revenge isn't hate. It's living a beautiful, happy life. Goodbye for now. And so, this story reminds us of one of life's most profound truths: our worth is not defined by how others perceive us, but by how we value ourselves. Mallory's journey teaches that even in the darkest moments, when everything seems lost, there is an opportunity to rebuild, to rediscover, and to rise stronger than ever before. It is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of self-belief. In life, we may face betrayal, heartbreak, and loss, but we must never forget that these moments do not define who we are. Instead, they reveal our strength, our courage, and our capacity to grow. Like Mallory, we all have the ability to turn pain into purpose and transform our struggles into stepping stones toward a brighter future. What did this story teach you about self-worth and resilience? Share your thoughts below or simply comment good if this message resonated with you. Let's inspire each other to embrace our strength and live our best lives.